almost everything we do is sort of now potentially surveillable, which I think is, in a sense, the most important structural change in society. It used to be that if you read a book, if you had a conversation, made a visit to a friend, these were all facts about your life that would not leave a permanent record. Macro change is a shift toward, in a sense, everything being privately surveilled and therefore ready for government acquisition.
I think that the public is
Bombshell leaks that revealed the massive scale of U.S. surveillance has unmasked it himself.
That spell out a secret surveillance program.
Edward Snowden.
My name is Faisal Gill. I'm an attorney. So when Glenn Greenwald called me, I was in private practice. My office was in D.C., but at that time I was living in Burlington, Vermont. He wanted to schedule a meeting to meet, and I was at that time just trying to build up my practice. I knew of Glenn Greenwald because I had read the newspaper articles and everything that came out about Edward Snowden, but I did not know him personally. So I went to New York and we met at a hotel, and at that time Glenn Greenwald asked if my email address was what my email address was. He read that to me. He goes, "Is this your email address?" I said, "Yes, it is." And then he said, "Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but you've been under surveillance by the NSA since 2006. And then I asked him, "Well, how do you know the NSA was spying on me?" And then he basically said, "Well, the documents that Edward Snowden took, your email, if this is your email address, this is the email address that NSA was spying on." And I think I asked him also, were there any other people being spied on, or was it just me? And then he said there was a few other prominent Muslims that were being spied on along with me. Before this happened to me, when people would ask me, "Hey, do you think minorities are picked on more?" I would always say, absolutely not. That's just complete nonsense. But now, as I look at the statistics, I absolutely think that is the case. The reason the NSA was spying on me is because of my religion and because of the fact that I'm active in Muslim issues.
The principal basis for FISA surveillance authority is you've got to have probable cause. I think the important thing to remember, particularly with U.S. persons, is you cannot solely get surveillance authority on a U.S. person because of First Amendment activity. So in other words, if I routinely meet with known terrorism suspects or known intelligence of officials of a foreign country, my meeting with them alone is not sufficient to get authority because that's First Amendment association activity. But there's got to be other evidence that the FBI can present to the court that demonstrates why it's appropriate to surveil me.
None of those happen to me. I don't deal with any foreign governments. I don't associate with any known terrorists. In my mind, I'm thinking, what am I doing? What have I done that would warrant this level of scrutiny, warrant being spied on? And I've heard people talk about in my case, well, what are you worried about if you're not doing anything wrong? So what? They surveilled you, they found nothing, but so what? And I sit there and go, that's not the criteria of our justice system. If that's the case, throw out the Fourth Amendment. There, you cannot have unreasonable searches.
I think given the very robust oversight we have both internally at the FBI and the DOJ, the oversight we have from 4 committees on the Hill, the oversight you have from the PCLOB, there's a significant amount of scrutiny. I don't worry about the intentions or the goodwill of the men and women that run these processes. And to the extent that they're making mistakes, there's a robust system that allows for the detection and correction of those mistakes.
An important thing to remember is what happened to me was not just me. NSA was surveilling about 100 prominent Muslims in the United States. So, and none of us are charged, and that's a very important fact right there. If we were being surveilled, none of us are charged. Forget about even being indicted, or forget about even being convicted.
You see a pattern of justifications for surveillance being offered that make extraordinary claims of necessity, extraordinary claims about the value of some more intrusive or very broad-based surveillance. And then much more quietly years later, it turns out that those claims are just not true. When the NSA was sort of caught doing bulk telephone record surveillance, claims were made about the thousands or tens of thousands of lives that had been saved by this. And then later it turned out, really literally, no useful intelligence came out of that.
The thing that can happen is either you target someone that shouldn't have been targeted. You're overly broad in your targeting of them. You collect information that is beyond the bounds of that's unrelated to foreign intelligence.